Admiral Kara Voss stood at the viewport of the Earth Defense Force flagship, Resilient Dawn, watching the massive Nexian warships materialize from hyperspace. Their crystalline hulls caught the light of Earth's sun, creating prismatic displays that would have been beautiful if they weren't attached to vessels of war. "They're right on schedule," she muttered, her weathered face reflecting off the reinforced glass. Behind her, the bridge crew maintained perfect discipline, though the tension was palpable. The Nexian Empire had discovered Earth 3 months ago. Their reaction to finding an independently spacefaring civilization in their sector of space had been predictably imperial, immediate demands for submission and integration into their perfect society. They claimed to have unified 10,000 worlds under their banner of enforced harmony. What they hadn't counted on was humanity's response. "No, thank you. And if you push this, you won't enjoy what follows." The Nexians had laughed. Their ambassador, a tall crystalline being named Xerith, had actually chimed in amusement during the final negotiation session. "Your species has barely reached the stars," he had said, his translucent form shifting through shades of condescending azure. "You cannot comprehend the power of a civilization that has ruled space for 10 millennia. Humanity's representative, Dr. Sarah Chen, had simply smiled. "We understand power perfectly well, Ambassador. That's why we're warning you instead of threatening you. There's a difference." Now, 3 months later, the Nexians had come to teach humanity its proper place in the galaxy. Their fleet was impressive. 200 capital ships, each one nearly the size of Manhattan, accompanied by swarms of smaller vessels that filled space like glittering stars. "Status of Operation Lighthouse?" Voss asked, not turning from the viewport. Her XO, Commander David Okafor, consulted his neural link. "All positions reported ready 15 minutes ago. Quantum entanglement networks are stable. The Nexians don't suspect a thing." Voss nodded slowly. Of course they didn't. The Nexians, for all their advanced technology, were products of their own success. 10,000 years of unopposed expansion had made them predictable. They expected every primitive species to fight the same way. Direct confrontation, ship against ship, until the superior numbers and technology of the Empire prevailed. They had no idea that humanity had been preparing for this moment since they first detected the Empire's scout ships at the edge of the solar system. While the diplomats talked peace, Earth's combined military forces had been executing a plan centuries in the making. "Send the final warning," Voss ordered. Protocol demanded they try one last time to prevent bloodshed, even though she knew the Nexians would ignore it. The message was simple. "This is Admiral Kara Voss of the Earth Defense Force. You are entering a restricted system. Withdraw immediately or face the consequences of your actions. This is your only warning." The response came quickly, broadcast on all frequencies in that familiar tone of crystalline superiority. "This is High Commander Xerith of the glorious Nexian Empire. Your impudence ends today. Surrender and submit to Imperial authority, or be destroyed. You have 10 minutes to lower your planetary shields." Voss finally turned from the viewport, her dark eyes hard with determination. "They really should have studied our history better," she said to her crew. "Send the activation signal. All units, execute Operation Lighthouse." In that moment, humanity revealed its first surprise. The Nexians had detected Earth's planetary shield grid, of course. What they hadn't detected was that every satellite, space station, and piece of debris in Earth orbit, accumulated over 3 centuries of space exploration, was part of an elaborate trap. Thousands of seemingly defunct satellites suddenly powered up. Abandoned space stations revealed hidden weapon ports. Even ancient communication satellites from humanity's first steps into space played their part, broadcasting electromagnetic frequencies that interfered with Nexian sensors. But the real surprise came from the quantum entanglement devices hidden throughout the Nexian fleet itself. Over the past 3 months, autonomous nanobots disguised as space debris had infiltrated their ships, laying the groundwork for what was about to happen. "Signal confirmed," Okafor reported. Quantum disruption field activating in 3, 2, 1. Across the Nexian fleet, their much-vaunted crystalline technology began to fail. Their ships, which used crystalline matrices for everything from computers to power distribution, found themselves unable to maintain stable patterns at the quantum level. The mighty vessels didn't explode or fall apart. That would have been too merciful. Instead, they simply stopped working, their crews trapped inside as the ships drifted helplessly in space. High Commander Xerith's voice crackled across the command channel, shock replacing his former arrogance. What have you done? We warned you, Voss replied calmly. We told you that you wouldn't enjoy what followed. This is just the beginning. You see, High Commander, humanity didn't spend the last 300 years just learning how to reach the stars. We spent it preparing for what we might find when we got here. She paused, allowing her words to sink in. Your empire has 10,000 years of experience ruling through force. But humanity, we have 10,000 years of experience surviving against all odds. And unlike you, we never stopped learning, never stopped adapting. As Earth's true defense fleet emerged from hiding, powered by technologies that didn't rely on crystalline matrices, Voss delivered the final blow. You thought our warning was a sign of weakness. It wasn't. It was the last courtesy we extended to you as a potential peaceful contact. Now you get to learn why every major power in human history eventually fell. They underestimated what humans are capable of when backed into a corner. The battle that followed would be remembered throughout the galaxy as the day the Nexian Empire learned that age and size don't always translate to victory. Sometimes, the species that seems the most primitive is the one that has been preparing the longest for this exact moment. And humanity had been preparing for a very, very long time. The aftermath of Operation Lighthouse left the Nexian Empire reeling, but High Command refused to accept that their perfect civilization could be so thoroughly outmaneuvered by what they considered primitives. Their response was as swift as it was predictable. They sent an even larger fleet. Dr. Maya Santos watched the quantum sensor readings from her research station on Europa, Jupiter's ice-covered moon. As head of Earth's Xenotechnology Division, she had spent the last decade studying fragments of alien technology collected by deep space probes. Now those years of research were about to pay off. They're using exactly the patterns we predicted, she reported to the holographic projection of Admiral Voss. The Nexians have modified their crystalline matrices to resist quantum disruption, but they're still fundamentally using the same technology. Voss's hologram nodded. Predictable. How long until they reach Jupiter's orbit? 6 hours at their current speed. They're being more cautious this time, running full sensor suites, watching for more hidden satellites. Maya allowed herself a small smile. They're fighting the last war. This was humanity's greatest advantage. While the Nexians had spent 10 millennia perfecting a single approach to warfare, humans had developed countless strategies, always adapting, always evolving. They didn't try to perfect one method. They mastered many. Operation Stormbreak was nothing like Lighthouse, where the first battle had used technology to disable the enemy. This one would use the very forces of nature against them. Maya turned to her team of scientists and engineers, each chosen for their ability to think beyond conventional boundaries. Begin the sequence. Let's show them why picking a fight in our solar system was their second mistake. Across the Jovian system, hidden antimatter catalysts activated. These devices, disguised as natural debris in Jupiter's rings and moons, had been placed over the last 5 years as part of humanity's solar system defense grid. Their purpose wasn't to destroy, but to transform. The Nexian fleet, now numbering over 500 capital ships, moved with practiced precision. They had learned from their first defeat, or so they thought. Their ships now generated protective fields specifically designed to counter quantum disruption. High Commander Xerith, demoted but not replaced after his failure, watched from his new flagship with cold determination. No tricks will work this time, he broadcasted to his fleet. We understand their primitive technology now. victory will be. His transmission cut off as Jupiter's magnetic field suddenly intensified 1,000-fold. The antimatter catalysts hadn't just activated, they had transformed Jupiter itself into a weapon. Fascinating, isn't it? Maya's voice cut across all Nexian communication channels. Your empire spent millennia mastering space, but you never truly learned to harness the power of astronomical bodies themselves. You see, humanity didn't just study how to travel between the stars. We studied the stars themselves. The Nexian fleet found themselves caught in an electromagnetic storm, unlike anything their civilization had ever encountered. Jupiter's enhanced magnetic field wreaked havoc with their crystalline technology, while artificial gravity wells created by the scattered catalysts pulled their ships off course. But the true masterstroke wasn't the attack itself, it was its nature. Nothing humanity did caused direct damage to the Nexian vessels. Nature itself seemed to turn against them, making it impossible for them to blame any single human weapon or tactic. Commander Alexei Volkov, coordinating the human response from Ganymede Base, couldn't help but appreciate the elegance of the strategy. You know what their historians will say about this, he commented to Maya over a private channel. They'll say Jupiter itself rejected them. It's perfect psychological warfare. The Nexian fleet's formation broke apart as ships struggled against forces they had never trained to resist. Their technology, perfect for space combat, proved useless against the fundamental forces of nature turned against them. You still don't understand, do you? Maya broadcasted to the struggling fleet. Every time you come at us, you'll face something different. We're not trying to perfect a single way of war. We're mastering all of them. Today, we turned a gas giant into a weapon. What do you think we could do with a star? The retreat, when it came, was less organized than their arrival. The mighty Nexian fleet fled from Jupiter's orbit, leaving behind dozens of ships trapped in the enhanced gravity wells or disabled by electromagnetic pulses. In the aftermath, Maya stood at her station's viewport, watching Jupiter's swirling storms, now slightly altered by humanity's interference. A message from Earth Command appeared on her neural link. Phase 2 complete. Begin preparations for Phase 3. She smiled. The Nexians still hadn't realized that every victory they achieved, every adaptation they made to counter human tactics, was leading them exactly where humanity wanted them to go. They were learning, yes, but they were learning the lessons humanity wanted them to learn. The next phase would show them something entirely different, because that's what humans did best. They evolved, adapted, and turned every defeat into an opportunity to become stronger. The real question wasn't whether the Nexian Empire would learn from these defeats. The question was, would they learn quickly enough to survive what came next? In the crystalline halls of the Nexian High Command, a crisis was unfolding. For the first time in 10 millennia, the Empire's military council couldn't agree on a strategy. The holographic displays showed their latest defeat in excruciating detail. Mighty warships scattered like leaves in Jupiter's enhanced magnetic storms. First Admiral Xerix, his crystalline form pulsing with angry red light, faced the council. Twice we have underestimated these humans. I propose something unprecedented. We must change our tactics. The words sent shocked whispers through the chamber. The Nexian Empire hadn't changed its military doctrine since its founding. Their way was perfect, refined through 10,000 years of victories, or so they had believed. But now, in a hidden facility beneath the Martian surface, humanity was preparing to shatter that belief completely. Colonel Sarah Chen, great-granddaughter of the diplomat who had first warned the Nexians, stood before a massive quantum display. Around her, rows of cybernetically enhanced operators monitored a system that had taken decades to perfect. Status of the Lazarus Protocol, she asked. Her chief engineer, Dr. Raj Patel, gestured at the display. All salvaged Nexian ships are integrated into the network. Their crystalline matrices have been completely reprogrammed. It's beautiful, really. Their perfect technology is perfect for repurposing. The human strategy had been multilayered from the start. Each defeat they handed the Nexians wasn't just a victory. It was a calculated move to capture their technology. Every disabled ship from the previous battles had been carefully collected, studied, and transformed. "Begin broadcast," Chen ordered. Across the solar system, seemingly dead Nexian ships suddenly reactivated. But now they responded to human commands, their crystalline matrices reprogrammed to serve new masters. The Nexian Empire's Third Fleet, approaching Mars with over 1,000 ships, received a shock that shook their worldview to its core. They found themselves facing their own vessels, perfectly replicated down to the smallest detail, but fighting with completely alien tactics. "This is impossible." First Admiral Zerix's voice cracked with disbelief. "Those ships were destroyed." "No," Chen's voice replied across all frequencies. "They were reborn. Your empire spent 10 millennia perfecting your technology. We spent 10 millennia perfecting the art of taking other people's technology and making it better. The battle that followed defied conventional logic. The reprogrammed ships moved in ways their original designers had never imagined possible. They used the crystalline technology in ways that violated every principle of Nexian military doctrine." Dr. Patel watched the tactical display with professional admiration. "It's not just that we're using their ships," he explained to Chen. "We're using them wrong, by their standards. We're doing things with their technology that they considered impossible, imperfect, beneath them." The psychological impact was devastating. Nexian crews watched in horror as ships identical to their own performed maneuvers that violated everything they had been taught. The perfect formations they had relied on for millennia crumbled against enemies that turned their own strengths against them. But humanity's true masterstroke wasn't military, it was informational. Every moment of the battle was broadcast across the Nexian Empire's own communication networks. Throughout their territory, subject species watched as the undefeatable force proved very defeatable indeed. In the council chamber, a junior analyst named Exiris watched the battle with growing understanding. Unlike his superiors, he had studied human history extensively after their first encounter. What he saw wasn't just military defeat, it was evolution in action. "They're not just fighting us," he whispered. "They're learning us. Every battle teaches them more about our technology, our tactics, our weaknesses, and they're showing everyone in the galaxy how to do the same." The Empire's Third Fleet retreated, but the damage was done. Throughout Nexian space, questions began to arise. If their perfect system could be so thoroughly defeated, was it truly perfect? If their unbeatable technology could be turned against them, what else might be possible? In her command center, Shen received a message from Earth Command. Phase 3 complete. Societal destabilization beginning across Nexian space. Prepare for Phase 4. She smiled. The Nexians still hadn't realized that the real war wasn't being fought with ships and weapons. It was being fought in the minds of every species that watched these battles. Humanity wasn't just defeating the Empire. They were showing the galaxy that it could be defeated. "Send the next message," she ordered. Across Nexian space, communication systems activated with a simple broadcast. "To all species under Nexian rule, you've seen what's possible. What happens next is up to you." The real war was just beginning, and it would be fought not with weapons, but with ideas. Ideas were humanity's most powerful export, especially the idea that no power, no matter how ancient or perfect, was truly unbeatable. First Admiral Zerix stared at the tactical displays, his crystalline form dimmed with exhaustion. "What are these humans?" He asked nobody in particular. The answer came from Xeris. "They're what we could have been, if we hadn't stopped evolving 10,000 years ago." The once pristine halls of the Nexian Central Academy were in chaos. For the first time in its 5,000-year history, students were questioning their teachers. Young Nexians, their crystalline forms flickering with uncertain colors, demanded answers about the humans who had so thoroughly shattered their understanding of warfare. Professor Lissix, one of the Empire's most respected military historians, faced a barrage of questions from his advanced tactical studies class. His form shifted between shades of blue and green, reflecting his inner turmoil. "But why didn't we adapt sooner?" asked a student named Verix, her crystalline structure pulsing with curiosity. "If humans could evolve their tactics so quickly, why couldn't we?" Before Lysix could respond, a new voice cut through the chamber. "Because adaptation requires admitting imperfection." Xeris, the junior analyst who had first understood the true nature of humanity's strategy, stepped into the room. His presence was unexpected. Junior analysts didn't typically interrupt academy sessions. Meanwhile, on the human colony of New Terra, Admiral Voss reviewed the intelligence reports with growing satisfaction. "The infection of ideas spreads faster than any virus," she remarked to her staff. "Show me the latest from the Nexian education centers." The displays showed scenes from across the Empire. Young Nexians were devouring human historical records, studying Earth's military history with unprecedented fervor. They weren't just learning about human tactics. They were learning how to think like humans. They're particularly fascinated by something called guerrilla warfare, reported intelligence officer Nina Rodriguez. "The concept of asymmetric combat is revolutionary to them. Their entire military doctrine was based on overwhelming force and perfect execution." Back in the academy, Xeris had taken control of the discussion. Using his security clearance, he displayed footage from all 3 major battles with humanity. "Look at what they did," he insisted. "Each time we faced them, they used completely different strategies. They didn't try to perfect one approach. They mastered adaptation itself." The students watched in fascination as the battles replayed. First, the quantum disruption that had turned their own technology against them. Then, the transformation of Jupiter into a weapon. Finally, the psychological masterpiece of their own captured ships, fighting with impossible tactics. "But that's not the most important lesson," Xeris continued. "The humans didn't just defeat our fleets, they defeated our way of thinking. Each victory wasn't just military, it was educational." Professor Lysix found himself nodding despite his initial skepticism. "They turned our defeats into teaching moments," he realized aloud. "Not just for themselves, but for every species watching." On New Terra, Admiral Voss received a priority communication from Earth Command. The message was brief but significant. Phase 4 proceeding faster than anticipated. Young Nexians are actively seeking human knowledge. Proceed with Phase 5. Voss smiled. "Confirm Phase 5, she replied. "Send the education package." Across Nexian space, communication networks suddenly filled with freely accessible human historical records. Not just military histories, but everything. Art, literature, science, philosophy. The message was clear. Humanity wasn't just willing to fight the Empire, they were willing to teach it. The impact was immediate and profound. Young Nexians, already questioning their society's rigid perfection, found themselves exposed to thousands of years of human thought and innovation. They discovered concepts their civilization had never considered. Ideas like creative destruction, controlled chaos, and the strength of diversity. In the academy, Verix raised a question that would echo across the Empire. If perfection means never changing, never growing, never learning, is it truly perfect? The question sparked a debate that would transform Nexian society. The younger generation began to see their civilization's unchanging nature not as a strength, but as a vulnerability. They started forming discussion groups, sharing human ideas, and even experimenting with new forms of crystalline technology. Professor Lysix watched his students with a mixture of concern and pride. "We thought we were the teachers of the galaxy," he said to Xeris. "But perhaps it was time for us to become students again." The human strategy had worked better than anyone had anticipated. Instead of trying to destroy the Nexian Empire, they had introduced something far more powerful: doubt. Not just doubt in their military superiority, but doubt in the very concept of unchanging perfection. Admiral Voss reviewed the latest reports with satisfaction. "You know what's beautiful about this?" she asked Rodriguez. "They're not becoming more like us. They're rediscovering who they could have been all along." Every species needs to find its own path to evolution. The real victory wasn't in defeating the Nexian Empire. It was in helping them defeat their own stagnation. And as the young Nexians began to embrace change and adaptation, humanity prepared for the final phase of their strategy, showing the Empire that enemies could become allies if both sides were willing to learn and grow. In the academy, Virix approached Xeris after class. "I want to learn more," she said, her form glowing with determination. "Not just about human warfare, but about human thinking. How do we start?" Xeris's response would become famous throughout the Empire. "We start by accepting that the path to true perfection isn't in achieving it. It's in never stopping our journey toward it." The revolution had begun, not with weapons, but with ideas. And ideas, once planted, were impossible to stop. The Grand Council chamber of the Nexian Empire had changed. Where once only the highest-ranking officials were permitted to speak, now representatives from across their civilization gathered to debate the future. Among them stood humans, invited not as conquered subjects, but as teachers and potential allies. High Commander Xerath, his crystalline form now permanently shifted to a deeper, more complex pattern of colors, addressed the assembly. He was no longer the arrogant leader who had dismissed humanity's warning. Defeat and learning had transformed him. "For 10,000 years," he began, "we claimed to have achieved perfection. We were wrong. True perfection, as our human colleagues have shown us, lies not in reaching a final state, but in continuous evolution." Dr. Sarah Chen, representing Earth's diplomatic corps, watched from her position in the chamber. Besides her stood Virix, now a leading voice in the Nexian reform movement, and Xeris, whose early understanding of human nature had helped bridge the gap between their civilizations. "The humans didn't just defeat our fleets," Xerath continued. "They defeated our complacency. Each battle was a lesson, each defeat a gift, though we were too blind to see it at first." In orbit above the Nexian homeworld, a joint fleet of human and Nexian vessels conducted exercises together. The ships moved in formations that would have been considered heretical just months ago, combining human adaptability with Nexian precision in ways that made both more effective. Admiral Voss, observing from the flagship Resilient Dawn, turned to her Nexian counterpart, Fleet Commander Xerix. "Your crews are learning quickly," she noted. Xerix's crystalline form shimmered with pride. "They're doing more than learning. They're creating." Yesterday, a junior officer suggested a modification to our crystalline matrices that even your scientists hadn't considered. She said she was inspired by studying human jazz music, of all things. Back in the council chamber, Xerath reached the heart of his address. "We face a choice today. Do we cling to our old definition of perfection, or do we embrace a new understanding? One that sees perfection in the ability to change, to grow, to evolve." The chamber erupted in discussion, crystalline forms shifting through complex patterns of color that would have been considered chaotic and inappropriate just months ago. But chaos, they had learned, wasn't always the enemy of order. Sometimes it was the source of new and better forms of order. Dr. Chen activated her neural link, connecting to Earth Command. "Phase 5 is complete," she reported. "The transformation has exceeded all projections. They're not just accepting change, they're embracing it." The response came back quickly. "Proceed with final phase. Alliance proposal." Chen stood, her movement drawing all attention in the chamber. "High Commander, Honored Council, I bring a proposal from Earth. We've shown you what humanity can do as an opponent. Now let us show you what we can accomplish as allies." She activated a holographic display, showing a vision of joint human-Nexian ventures, scientific cooperation, cultural exchange, combined space exploration missions, but most importantly, a new approach to galactic civilization, one that valued both stability and change, tradition and innovation. "We humans have our own flaws," Chen admitted. "We can be chaotic, impatient, sometimes reckless in our drive for progress. But you Nexians have shown that you possessed virtues we could learn from: patience, precision, the ability to maintain harmony across vast distances. Perhaps together, we could achieve something greater than either of us could alone. Varric stepped forward, her crystalline form pulsing with excitement. Think of what we could become, she urged the council. Not a static empire, but an evolving alliance. Not perfect, but perfectly adapted to face whatever challenges the galaxy presents. The vote that followed wasn't unanimous. Change never is, but it was decisive. The Nexian Empire would transform into something new. The Nexian Human Cooperative, an alliance dedicated to combining the strengths of both civilizations while helping each overcome their weaknesses. As the council session ended, Cirrus approached Chen privately. You knew this would happen, didn't you? From the very first warning, this was your real strategy. Chen smiled. We had hopes, she admitted. Humanity's greatest strength isn't our technology or our tactics. It's our ability to turn enemies into friends. We've done it countless times in our own history. Sometimes the best way to defeat an enemy is to help them become something better. In orbit, Admiral Voss watched as human and Nexian ships performed another joint maneuver. You know what the best part is, she said to Xerix. This is just the beginning. Wait until the rest of the galaxy sees what we can accomplish together. Xerix's form shifted to a new pattern, one that combined traditional Nexian symmetry with subtle variations inspired by human art. Perhaps that was the true perfection we were seeking all along, he replied. Not in standing still, but in learning to dance with chaos itself. The story of humanity's war with the Nexian Empire became legend throughout the galaxy. But it wasn't remembered as a story of conquest or defeat. Instead, it became known as the War of Evolution, a conflict that proved that sometimes the greatest victories come not from destroying your enemies, but from helping them transform into something new. And in the centuries that followed, as human and Nexian ships ventured together into unknown regions of space, they carried with them a new understanding. True strength lies not in achieving perfection, but in never-ending growth. Not in being undefeatable, but in learning from every defeat. Not in standing alone, but in learning to evolve together.